educated guess because on Friday, shows you how small the world is. Nick Watney is a Fresno State grad who went to high school where we went to high school at Davis High, withdrew from the tournament. And I saw a tweet that said, rumors were someone tested positive. And then people were like, listen, I don't know who it is, but Nick Watney randomly withdrew and he was about to tee off. And then like within the hour, it came out that Nick Watney was the guy. I'm going to take an educated guess here that one of the injured guys, because when you break something like those guys did and go to the hospital, I'm pretty sure it's a mandatory test when you go to the hospital where the guys on the field, again, I don't know anything, we're not getting tested on a daily basis. So I'm going to take an educated guess. It feels like it's more likely one of the two guys that got hurt just because they would have automatically been tested right when they got into the hospital. Now, maybe there's a chance that the 49ers we're having them all tested. I don't know. So maybe I shouldn't assume that because maybe they had trainers. But then I start thinking the NFL would probably not want you to be able to set up it'd be like setting up a practice, right? They have not allowed that. So I don't know if the Niners technically could have anything to do with their operation, right? Like the Niners trainers aren't there. They're not allowed to like supply medical people. But then I started thinking, could you run a practice like that without a couple of trainers out there? It's kind of risky. It's like Jimmy carrying Debo to the hospital.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering when it happened. Like what were their immediate phone calls? Luckily, the injury was not something
He's like,
more
guys,
serious.
My foot's going the wrong way. And everyone's like, well, Juszczyk went to Harvard. It's like, what do you do? Because we've all been to practices, and anyone that's, I guess it happens in high school practice, but it definitely happens a lot in college and the pros. When a guy goes down, you have 2 or 3 people there with fanny packs that just know what they're doing.
Even a high school practice has a trainer.
Yeah, it has trainers.
But the reason we bring this up is so the doctor for the NFL Players Association, the union, recommended that nobody else get together for these workouts. Like, just don't do group workouts. So that's the other piece of news that came out of it. It is a reminder, and I've said this a few times because my sister is studying to be a physical therapist, so she follows all these PT Instagram accounts and stuff, and she sent me one where some physical therapist posted the data of the increase in Achilles injuries after the lockout in 2011. She was like, hey, just FYI. I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Maybe this year could just be weird given how weird everyone's workouts is. And even if they weren't, it is just a reminder of you and I look at the Niners like, all right, they're just on the list of teams that could win a Super Bowl this year, right?
Yeah.
And it's just
they're on Jamal Adams' list.
Sometimes crazy shit happens. Like you like the team that you bet on in soccer is dominating time of possession, and then somebody gets red carded and they're down a man and they give up 3 goals.
Well, yeah, it sucks.
But the point is this is sports. Like, and this is going to be a big part of sports. It's just we're going to get some curveballs, like you like to say, where you just don't know what's going to happen. You got to be ready for it.
I mean, you just hope it's not Kittle or Trent Williams or Jimmy, but you'd say Debo is not. To me, there's a big gap between Debo and Richie James, right? Richie James is a replaceable player. Debo is a legitimate
supposed to lead the team in
star.
Receptions. This year.
So I'd say that to me, that's one that rattled the cage. Like when I see a Richie James, maybe I'm numb to this. It doesn't do much to me. Like every team has a Richie James. Like whatever. It's gonna sound cold. You just kind of discard it.
Well, every injury you do think, right? Like, can we survive this or not?
Yeah. Who else
do
we got? Even like the Eagles, for example, Brandon Brooks, 3 straight Pro Bowls for the Eagles. He's, I think, widely considered. Pro Football Focus considers him the best guard. When I saw that, if I was Howie, I'd be mad. I mean, he's one of their best just individual players. If it had to be a player, though, I'd want it to be a guard. Like, I'd rather have it be that than Jalen Reagor breaks his foot, right, or tears his Achilles, because I could figure out a guard. I can find a guard. Like Debo, to me, it's like, ugh. Couldn't be Richburg got re-injured. I don't want anyone to get injured, but there are, like, every player has a different impact. Like, we were chalking Debo up for 80 catches. Now, I had a buddy, Michael Madsen from Fresno, who grew up with my cousin. He texted me the other day. He's like, Debo had the same injury I had. Now, again, they own an alarm company. He's not a pro athlete. I said, well, what was the rehab? He said, first month you wear a cast. Second month you wear a boot. So I go, well, there's 8 weeks right there. And that's why I think when you say 12 to 16, for
Debo says
8 of
10.
those, well, of course, but I think 8 of those weeks, maybe a little closer, you got an apparatus on your foot,
Right.
right? And I do think, like you said, factoring in that this has not been normal off season, and who even knows? I mean, we'll see the timing of are we going to hit the ground running. You got to be careful with this one, I think, right? With Debo's foot, like I can't have another break rushing back. I gotta
Whatever
be
like the Trent Taylor just kept having complications.
yeah. But
I
and when you say Trent Taylor's a good example, like when Trent happened last year, it was like, oh, that sucks, but it's not going to make or
Yeah.
break their season.
Right.
I'd say Debo would have a huge impact on their season if he's missing 8 games.
Yeah,
Right?
but I would say the odds are that the teams, unfortunately, the other teams that are trying to win a Super Bowl are going to have weird shit happen to them too. Like it's just that's the odds every year. This year, I think those odds are even higher. Unfortunately.
Well, guy, I talked to a buddy in the league the other day. He's like, the one thing our coach is going to have to do over and over and over again, and luckily players, I do think it's difficult because I'm older than most players in the NFL, but like I've been living. Now I haven't been going to like clubs or anything. Like part of the reason LSU had 30 guys test positive, there was like an open nightclub in LSU that had like a huge, it was like a come on,
Welcome
guys.
back party.
But there is gonna be a situation where it's like, you just get a random starting quarterback test positive for the coronavirus, right?
Right.
And then immediately he's just not going to play. So you already have the league that just naturally has the most injuries anyway because of the setup of the sport. It's physical and you're hitting, and then you have this extra thing that is just going to hit some guys during. Like I don't see how it's not possible to go. There are going to be countless star players, and hell, they might be perfectly healthy at the time, test positive out that week. It's gonna be really crazy if it's a quarterback and it's like a Monday Night Football game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what happens if it happens on Sunday and now you're trying to figure out, like, is the team going to run out of players?
Yeah, it'd be one. You're right. Like the time, if it happens on Monday, you could pivot a little bit. But I was thinking about this the last couple weeks. Part of football, baseball's like this too. Basketball's not really. You're always kind of like churning the roster, right? Like bringing a guy from the minors because a guy goes on the DL, or cutting a guy, bringing another guy from the. He just shows up, puts on a shit, and goes plays, right? You just get rid of the other guy, and the other guy comes back. Just a lot of guys in and out of the locker room. You don't even think about it. Like, oh, you got starting my backup linebacker broke his foot in special teams. I need to sign a guy, bring in 3 guys, work them out. Best one, all 3 shower. We pick one. He gets a locker. We're off and running.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, what if you got to test the 3 guys? What if the guy you want has it? Then you're like, well, I got to take the other guy because that guy doesn't have it.
You got to teach him somebody's role. Like, what if he's been practicing all week as the outside receiver and now he's got to play the other side slot? But I do think you're just going to need much. I think you're going to need bigger practice squads.
Well, they added 2 guys.
I don't think that's enough.
Well, guy, there's a lot of diminishing. There's only so many NFL players.
Well, I understand, but it's like they would rather have non-NFL players on the field than have to not play a game because they only got 42 guys. Or maybe you just play. You got 42 guys, you play. You don't have enough for 46, or is the active roster bigger this year?
Put a guy on second base.
all-time quarterback. That's what it's going to be. Lamar Jackson playing all-time quarterback.
Yeah, weird things are going to happen. And to me, the Niners already got some injuries, and they already have a positive test. Now, again, it's clearly one of these. Now, I don't know if it's one of the 2 guys in the hospital, but we have a general idea it's one of the crew, right?
Right.
Because they made it sound like it was a guy in Nashville, correct?
That's how I understood it, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I understood it, too. So I actually think unfair to even take an educated guess about Richie James because he got hurt in Florida.
But I think the healthy way, just for you and me and everyone watching this as a consumer, is just to take the outlook that I think you mentioned this when we talked about Debo. It's just, this is just sports. Because I said something like, well, it'd be great if maybe you didn't do any of this stuff. You didn't do any player-led workouts. And your response, which is correct, was, well, at some point you're going to have to play. Like, some guy gets hurt jet skiing. You're like, dude, don't jet ski. Or skiing or pick up basketball when he's a football player. But at some point you have to just play the sport. And this is just part of this deal. It's just part of this deal.
I've said from the jump, I think Brandon Brooks, the Eagles guy, got hurt working out. Football is the one sport where part of your workout entails like pushing semi trucks, right? Sometimes your tendons just, or deadlifting an ungodly amount of money or weight. You're doing that so you can make an ungodly amount of money, but you're just doing things that are not normal. It's why you don't often see, the Phoenix Suns starting shooting guard, just the bench press, tore his labrum. Like that never
Usually
happens.
if it happens in basketball, it's like there's a malpractice lawsuit or something.
It's a freak deal. How often in football? It happens a lot in college because they're making a huge jump to push a lot of weights where it's like, yeah, he tore his pec. He's trying to going for the record, going for the Bulldog, trying to take Logan Mankins out. He sees Logan Mankins up on the board, or he sees Glenn Dorsey up on the board. Yeah. That's always like we're pushing him, and that's part of football. It's like you're always chasing.
Trying to get on the War Daddy list. All their top 5 guys are War Daddies.
Yeah, you're trying to be the #1 War Daddy in school history, and in the NFL, you're like trying to get a little bit better to make more money. It's all essentially the same. Your goals are just.
Who's the last baseball player to pop a pec doing some weight training?
That's what I'm saying. It never happens in basketball and in baseball, but it happens in football. And now you're factoring in Corona, which I would say football, just the nature of the sport, touching. Literally, the soft way to play football is 2-hand touch, right? Yep. And when they play football practice, where they don't hit, keep them up. You just kind of touch them. So it always ensures, like, you don't touch, that means touchdown, right? Every guy, every play needs to be touched. And usually, one thing that always stands out to me, get 2 hats on the ball. You want several defensive players on the football. So that means you gang tackle. Like, you don't want Luke Kuechly to make individual tackles. You want 3 or 4 guys flying to the football.
Right.
So now hey guys, we got to get better at individual tackling so we can avoid the Corona, just become a great open field tackler. And if you see the guy and it looks like he's going to make the open field tackle, pull up.
Rally to the ball. Click, click, boom.
Rally to the ball, but don't be afraid to take a 90-degree turn if you feel the guy's on the ground. We do not need extra guys on the pile.
What do you think of that fake COVID helmet that somebody posted this week?
I thought it looked kind of cool.
Looks like a paintball mask.
Yeah, I thought it looked kind of cool. I'd be shocked if guys are. Was it the Bears? Was that the team?
It was like a fake Bears mock-up.
Yeah. I'd be a little shocked if they wear something like that. But I would never put it past the NFL to do whatever it takes possible to get players on the field. Right?
Just look, man. Hope the season happens. The sun comes up. There'll be more of these Debo incidents. Hopefully he's back quickly. And
well, I think college, because most football teams have not been together. I've seen a couple numbers. I saw Kansas State was like, I've seen high teens and 20s of groups. So
you're talking about COVID. I'm just talking about everything. But yeah, there have been some high teens and 20s.
Yeah.
I think you said LSU. There was another one.
Clemson had a bunch. K-State had a bunch.
Yeah.
So, I saw someone hit me up on DMs, said, listen, I don't think this is true, but would you put it past people to be trying to get it so they just have already got it for once the season started?
It did occur to me to infect your whole team, yeah.
The problem would be you just one guy
I didn't
goes
actually
down
think, yeah, you can't actually do it, but then you find out Saban did it. Like, how come Alabama had no COVID test the whole season?
Yeah.
Well, Saban put it in their Cliff Bars. Micro dosing in their Gatorades.
Yeah, he put a strand of the virus, as well as he had reached out to Lance Armstrong and David Ortiz and put a strand of the other stuff, and they combined, and they got bigger while they quarantined.
This is amazing. And now none of them have ACL injuries either. It's incredible.